My name is Lesley Patterson-Marx and I'm here to show you how to print on fabric with vegetables. I've got some supplies here to show you what you'll need, and you will need textile paint. Here's an example. Jacquard textile paint can usually be found at your local art supply store. And the advantage of using textile paint is that it doesn't leave a stiff texture on your fabric like acrylic paint, but you can use acrylic paint and it will work. You'll need foam brushes or makeup sponges, a variety of vegetables and some fruits if you'd like to try printing fruit, a carving tool if you'd like to try carving a potato, some pins to pin your fabric down, a pair of gloves, some freezer paper to cover your work surface, baby wipes for cleaning up paint, and spoons. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'll move my paint out of the way because I'd like to show you some examples of fabric that I've printed using vegetables. This one here was printed from peppers. So they were different sizes, and you can see here's an example of one of the shapes that's created when you cut a pepper. And here's one that I'm going to print today. The next piece of fabric I'm going to show you was created with carved potatoes, and they have a nice oval shape. And this one, these little shapes were created by celery and peppers, and the round shape was simply a carrot. So there's so much variety that can be had in printing vegetables. One thing that I do before I begin in deciding on my pattern is that I test things out. I just try them just to see what's going to work. Especially if I'm trying to print something that I've never printed before, it's a good idea just to see what it's going to look like. So now I'll just tidy up my workspace. And prepare to print. So what I have here is called a print pad. And if you haven't seen my video on how to make one for yourself, I have instructions on how to make a print pad. It's just a soft portable surface that you can pin your fabric to that just helps you get a better quality print. The soft surface really helps to create a nice clarity in your print. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my test fabric and pin it to my print pad. So I'll just pin the corners. Try to pin it in an area where you won't be printing. So far enough over to the corner to where that pin isn't going to be in your way. So the first thing I'm going to show you is printing a background layer with broccoli. So I'll take a little bit of paint and I'll check to make sure there aren't any loose broccoli stems like that one that I found. And then I'm just going to daub it onto there. Sometimes little bits of things will fall onto your fabric and just want to pick them up right away. I'm just going to make sure to daub enough paint on that broccoli there and then start stamping it. It creates an interesting little texture there, and when you need to, apply more paint. I like how that's turning out. There you go. So now that I've tested that out, I can say, well, I think I want to try that on my good fabric eventually. So I'll set that broccoli aside. And I think for the next part, my hands might get a little messier. So I'll just be sure to put on my gloves. And if you have an apron, don't forget to wear an apron or your messy art clothes. Now I'm going to try a piece of celery. I like that shape. So I've got a bigger piece and then a smaller piece. I'll try those. Let me just dab that on there. Like a little half moon shape. So you can see, you can, depending on the amount of paint that you put on there, you can get different kinds of lights and darks. And then you can also just stamp leftover paint and gradually your stamp will get lighter. Okay, so that's gonna work. Now I'll try the smaller piece just to vary the pattern. So I think I'll try this green. This time I'll show you the foam brush. It works pretty much the same as the cosmetic brush. I think I'll just alternate that celery. So there's just infinite variety that you can create. So many possibilities for pattern. So starting off by playing on your test fabric is a good idea. It's usually how I start my process. Now I will see what it looks like to print this pepper, and I think it would be really fun to do this hot pink. Just be sure to get enough paint on there. I like that shape. I'll add another layer of paint. And then another. Making sure to hold this so that I don't drop it. And now I'm going to start with some smaller shapes. Let's see, I think I'll try the blue. And then I'll add one more over here. And there we go. Now I'm going to unpin this. Got a little bit of paint on my gloves, so I'll take my gloves off. And the next thing I'm going to show you is how to carve a potato and print a whole pattern with that. So now you'll see I've got some paint on the print pad there that I need to clean up before I do anything else. And the great thing is that I have these wipes that make things so easy to clean up. So usually when you're printing, some paint will soak through the fabric. And the great thing about this plastic covering on it is it's so easy to clean up. I'm going to move my print pad out of the way while I carve my potatoes. And while I'm carving the potatoes, I'm going to cover my surface with the freezer paper here. Actually, I'll use that to set it down. I have a carving tool. It's called a linoleum carving tool, and you can get this at your local art supply store. And so I'm just going to carve a little pattern into here. Just scoop out a little layer of potato there. I'm going to keep it simple, just some straight lines. Be sure you carve away from your body, and be sure you keep your fingers out of the way. And there we go. Just a little simple design. And now I'll carve in the opposite direction on this one. And another thing that could be fun is carving into a carrot or a radish. That works too. And so I have my potatoes. Throw that freezer paper away. And now I'll bring my print pad out. I have this piece of fabric that I dyed with Kool-Aid. And I'm going to pin it down. Pinning it down on all the corners. And ideally, before you start printing on your good piece of fabric that you want to work on, you would test out your pattern. You know, work on that test fabric until you really get a pattern that you like. So I've pinned it down on all four corners, and then I'll do the middle of each side as well, just to make sure it's nice and secure. I'm going to make sure that my pin is not going to be in the way of my image area. And then one thing that can be helpful in your design is marking the center of your fabric. I can see the center here pretty well, but if you haven't printed before, or if you just want to know precisely where the center is so you can start your pattern there and work out, you can use a ruler and just mark that center and work from there. I think I will start off with blue for this potato. Nice, I like how that turned out. And next I'm going to do yellow. I'll just alternate blue and yellow, I think. And then maybe add in a third color there eventually. want to be careful of is just be careful not to accidentally drop your vegetable onto your fabric. That's happened to me before. So just be sure you have a good handle on it. And then I think I'm going to alternate with a different vegetable. Let me get one more blue on there, and then I'll show you what I'm going to try. I think I'd like to add a pink and use this. Sort of like an orangey pink. And it's very similar, very close to this color that I've already got going on here as the fabric, but I think it'll just make a nice, somewhat subtle pop of color there. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going on like that, alternating the blue, yellow, and then add these little bits of orangey pink in there too until the whole thing is covered. And it's a really fun process, and one that I hope that you will enjoy and want to try again and again. Have fun!